Centre 454, a community ministry of the Anglican Diocese of Ottawa. A safe and welcoming place for those who are struggling with homelessness and issues around poverty.
I grew up on the streets. I left home at a very early age and got into like rebellious activity and crime and drugs and alcohol. Centre 454 has really been with me for a long time, and we've gone through a lot of hard times.
I've never lived anywhere for a long period of time. You know, I go place to place to place to place.
Cornerstone, emergency shelter and safe, supportive, affordable housing for women in Ottawa. Sheena has lived here for 8.5 years. St. Luke's Table, a community service designed for those struggling with homelessness and people living in precarious housing.
I live in a rooming house, and I can't really afford to like buy food or whatever. So I come here for breakfast and lunch Monday to Friday. I was tired of being arrested, thrown in jail, beaten up. Whenever I used to use alcohol, I was, you could say I was one of the biggest assholes. Like I didn't care. And I've been clean since, 11 years, 8 months.
I left the foster home when I was 16. When legally, that's when they put you on your own. Then at 18, I got married, had my child at 20, divorced at 22. I did do my first line of cocaine when I was about 25. This place, it's amazing how when I started coming here, it gave me that fight, that extra push that I needed. It also gave me a place where I could be accepted for me, without the drugs, without everything.
For Didi, this place is the well, la source, supporting women with basic needs, help with life choices, a community to be a part of. By the time Canadians reach the age of 40, 1 in 2 will have experienced mental illness. The Ottawa Pastoral Counselling Centre helps people with a wide range of needs. Compassion, respect, privacy. This is what you will find behind these doors.
They're a small group, but they're a large heart and really extend themselves to everyone, no matter who you are.
We're doing harm when we propagate secrecy and stigma around mental illness. I think it is past time that it becomes as normal to talk about it as it is to talk about any other illness.
70% of mental health problems have their onset during childhood and adolescence. Young people aged 15 to 24 are more likely to experience mental illness than any other age group. 5 community ministries For many people in Ottawa, places like this are about hope, sometimes the last hope.
This place has saved my life, literally has saved my life. I can't say more about the staff here. They're just phenomenal. They're my godsend, you know.
Thousands of Canadians are one paycheck away from homelessness.
I wish I was working like 3 or 4 times a week. Just once a week is not enough. I was like starving to death and I didn't have any food, and they're like, then I asked people where I can get food, and they said go to St. Luke's. I think St. Luke's is the best place. It helped me grow, and I'm glad that I'm right here, right now, still alive.
Many people lose their homes because of physical or mental illness, trauma or violence, addiction or cultural genocide.
You know, homelessness or addiction or disability or poverty it's not a sin. Most of the most genuine and real and original and sincere people in my life on the street, because they know what it's like. I can guarantee you that anyone would give you the coat off their back if you needed it.
A gospel-based approach with love at the center. This forms and links the work and services of the 5 community ministries.
This place is home. This is my home, you know, and I was able to like do everything myself. You know, I'm proud of it.
There's so many different women's stories here that mine is just one out of thousands of stories that have passed through here.
And it takes time, it takes trust, it takes work, it takes patience and practice and prayer. But the choice I made was hope. The choice I made was hope. So choose hope.
People who are living with issues around poverty, homelessness, precarious housing, addiction, trauma, mental illness are some of the great heroes in my life. And I really feel that their stories need to be told. We need to understand that living in poverty is exhausting, is full time. And our failure to raise people up, to give them housing and support, and wrapped around by a community of compassion and love is, for me, one of the great failures of our time.
Welcome to Building a Community of Hope, a fundraising event for the community ministries of the Anglican Diocese of Ottawa, Cornerstone Housing for Women, the Ottawa Pastoral Counseling Centre, and our Anglican Day programs, Centre 454, The Well, and St. Luke's Table. Thank you for joining us today. I know people are participating in this event from near and far. I want to acknowledge that I am standing on the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. May we dwell on this land with dignity and respect. My name is Peter John Hobbs. I'm the Director of Community Ministries for the Anglican Diocese of Ottawa. You'll meet our Executive Directors of the Community Ministries later in this event, along with Bishop Shane Parker. Today, as you learn more about our community ministries and meet some of our friends and partners and come to understand the reality that we are facing this winter, we are asking you to make a donation so that together we can reach today the ambitious goal of $50,000 for the community ministries of the Anglican Diocese of Ottawa. Please enjoy this brief video featuring our community ministries, followed by a few words from Claire, one of our many generous and supportive friends.
Really work a community center, a hub of activity. Folks are in and out all day. We see close to 170 people a day. Our job isn't to do anything for anyone. Our job is to walk alongside them and help clear the path if we can.
Cornerstone Housing for Women is an agency that works with women who are homeless at some point in their life.
This place is home. This is my home. I'm proud of it.
Love helping other people out. It's my nature.
Supportive housing is a key element in helping people with complex needs find housing and stay in housing. And I really like to say that actually housing is not the cure for homelessness. It's having a home is.
Hi, how are you?
The Ottawa Pastoral Counseling Centre is a psychotherapy and counseling centre, which means we have people coming in with a variety of different issues they want to talk about. We're talk therapists. These are people inside that need connection, no different than you or me.
I'm not the greatest at doing this, but when Jane asked, I thought I would try. Why do I give? I give because in my heart, I know that I am so blessed in so many ways, despite my very human struggles. I give because so many people struggle every day, and you just never know when someone is feeling overwhelmed. I give because there's been times in my life when I haven't been so blessed, and when the light was really hard to see, let alone believe. And I give because when I needed help, no one was there. And then, one day someone was there. And that's why I give. I give because though I host a satellite food bank in the town where I live, that's nowhere near enough. There is so much need everywhere. I give because I cry when I give somebody a $20 bill and they are overwhelmed because it's the difference between buying groceries or heating their house or buying medication. That's just not right. I give because I long for a day when everyone in need can access the love and caring of the very special people who run the Ottawa Community Ministries. Big changes are needed to help with homelessness, addiction, mental illness, food insecurities, just to mention some of the many problems. And I'm just one person. And so I give, because though on my own I cannot change the world, every drop in the bucket makes a difference. I give because I can. What about you? Can you?
Great to hear from Claire. Very inspiring. Now I'd like to introduce another special friend of our Community Ministries of Ottawa, Mr. Bruce Nickel. Bruce is chairman of Tartan Homes and president of the Wesley M. Nickel Foundation. Bruce, along with his family, is very much committed to maintaining the Nickel family tradition of giving back to the community. We are very grateful that Bruce has chosen to support our community ministries. Bruce has a challenge to make to all of us today, so I will hand things over to Bruce now.
Thanks, Peter John, for inviting me back. It's my pleasure to be here. Again, at the fundraiser for the community ministries. I remember last year we were all here at the cathedral for a breakfast with the mayor and many others, and boy, have times changed. But here we are, back doing this very important work. I have the honor and the pleasure of working for my late father, Wes Nickel's charitable foundation. And I remember talking to my dad, toward the end of his life about what kind of causes did he really want to support. And he spoke about his own life growing up in Ottawa. He grew up in hard times, and he always had, an ear and a heart for that group of us who he referred to as the disadvantaged. I'm not sure if that's a politically correct word anymore. So it's my job to do some due diligence and research and see what kind of agencies are out there delivering help to the disadvantaged in Ottawa. And coming across the community ministry some years ago, it really was an experience to me to see how focused this organization is. All 5 agencies that are part of the community ministries, they are really doing great work for the greatest in need, and they deliver it promptly and effectively and with love. So I've seen how the five agencies that are part of the community ministries work. And I've seen them working in quote unquote normal times, delivering great help to those in the greatest need with love. I've also seen how they're functioning now, in the era of the COVID virus, where all agencies have had to scramble and, rededicate resources. And I can tell you the community ministries aren't stuck. They're flexible, they respond, and again, very impressive what they're doing now to keep all the help flowing to those in greatest need. So this is one that I am very happy to continue supporting. Last year, speaking with the community ministries people, we came up with the idea of doing a matching pledge. So our foundation would pledge $25,000, and we would ask other donors to match it dollar for dollar in an effort to raise $50,000 for the community ministries. And so my pitch at the time is the same as is today. For those of you who are wondering where to donate your money, I've done the research. I've gone down and had a look. This is a good one. So we'll do the pledge again this year. I understand last year the pledge was matched within a few hours. So I'm hoping it'll take even less time this time around. So I invite you all to join me in making a contribution to the community ministries of Ottawa.
Bruce, thank you very much. Your generosity is appreciated by the community ministries and all the people that we serve, really contributing to making a difference in people's lives. Now I am inviting all of you who are participating in this event to make a donation to help us match this generous gift from the Wesley M. Nickel Foundation. Please visit our website at www.todayfortomorrow.ca to give online, or call us on the telephone to make a gift. The website address and our phone number are on the screen. Thank you for stepping up to this challenge. It really will make a difference in the lives of people, especially this coming winter.
The church can't do this alone. This is a societal problem, but it's right at the core of who we are as a church to respond to it. But I can think of any number of people who I've met along the way who once were really living in peril. And through support by the community, when our governments get it right, and when the church is there to do some of the practical some of the practical and also the emotional and spiritual aids that will make a difference, I've seen lives change.
We're proud people, right? Oh, we can fix this on our own. So you're not willing to ask for help. That's a big hurdle, and St. Luke facilitates that. Life brought me to that bad place, I guess, and I was in that neighborhood, and eventually started going to St. Luke's. You start with the food. That draws you in, and you find out there's other stuff. You have to ask. They can't come and volunteer it to you. It says this is what you need. Nobody knows what they need, really. You have to determine it and ask for it. So I guess that's the toughest hurdle.
There's a lot of good work going on here. This is an important part of community ministries. We are able to fulfill kind of some of the Christian tenets of going out and providing outreach. We're doing a lot of good here. I think that's what we're the message that I would like to pass on.
We are Warren and Debbie Trickey. We started volunteering and supporting community ministries 5 years ago when we were asked to sit on the organizing committee for the first fundraising breakfast. Over the years, the powerful stories that we have heard about the people being served and the work of community ministries has kept us coming back to volunteer. We were asked if we had a compelling story to share from our experience. Although there have been several, a most recent was this summer. We were part of a Zoom meeting with the Planned Giving Advisory Committee for Cornerstone, and Jessie Lee Wallace, the manager of resource development at Cornerstone, gave us an update of how COVID-19 had affected their delivery of service. She showed us photos of how things were being done. There was one photo of a woman from the emergency women's shelter standing at the door of her very small room, being given a meal in a takeout container.
That picture stayed with us after the meeting. All we could think about was how these women were having to stay in their small rooms because they could no longer enjoy congregate dining or group activities, and how their days must be so long and lonely. After checking with Jessie Lee about what we could do to help and finding out that the shelter also had no air conditioning, we moved into action. Warren started digging out some fans that we no longer used, and they were delivered to the shelter within a few days. I mobilized the various groups at St. Aidan's, our home parish, to start collecting arts and crafts supplies, and pens and pencils and such, and along with a few chocolate treats. 2 weeks later, an entire carload of supplies and a considerable cash donation were delivered to the shelter. For the folks at St. Aidan's, they were happy to be able to show their support to the women of Cornerstone and to be made aware of how COVID-19 was affecting our community ministries. Our project was but a small token of our support of community ministries. We ask you to join us in that support by making a financial donation to building a community of hope. As well as Cornerstone, all of the ministries and the people they serve will benefit from your support, including the day programs of Center 454, St. Luke's Table, The Well, and the Ottawa Pastoral Counseling Center. With the second wave of COVID, there is still so much to do to help the people who are already suffering from food insecurities, homelessness, and mental health issues. We ask you to show your support today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome to everyone from the Great Hall of Christ Church Cathedral, and I'm so glad you're part of building a community of hope. I'm Shane Parker, I'm the Bishop of Ottawa, and with me on this silver screen here is Katie Burkholder Harris, who is the Executive Director of the Alliance to End Homelessness Ottawa, Rachel Robinson, who is the Executive Director of Center 454, St. Luke's Table, and The Well. And unfortunately, Councillor Catherine McKenney is not able to be with us because she's been drawn into an emergency meeting dealing with COVID-related matters. So there you go. Katie and Rachel, COVID-19 has in many ways been a teacher and a revealer for us. Mm-hmm. What has been brought into sharper focus for you in your areas, and what have you learned, and how has that affected how you've delivered services? Katie.
Well, I think the language of revealer is really apt here. And a lot of that is because many in the sector, people who work in the sector, people who work and support people experiencing homelessness, have known these things to be true for a very long time. We have seen funding get decreased and decreased and decreased in supporting people to have housing. And we now have seen the impact of no housing. And when the first defense to COVID-19 is to have an opportunity to stay home, that is what everybody has told us. What do you do when you have no home? And what you do is you wander around because you don't have any businesses open for bathrooms. You don't have spaces. Day programs had to shut down for a time. You don't have food access in the same way. You don't have bathroom access. And that is what we have seen in a way where there's a group of people in our community, our neighbors, who do not have access to the basic things that all people deserve for human dignity. And they haven't for a very long time. And I think it has absolutely brought it into sharper focus. And I think also a recognition that our collective health depends on people having homes. And so that's something that I've been finding more and more. I know Rachel and I both started our jobs pretty much on the 16th of March or about a week before. So it's been a pivot, but I think the urgency with which we need to address this has really been significant.
And Rachel, as executive director of day programs, you were in a place where people would come and all of a sudden they can't come. What happened for you at that time?
Well, we had to very, very quickly decide what elements of the day programs we could deliver outside of the buildings. So it was a really quick response. We had to think, okay, some basic needs, food, we can take that to people. Basic supplies, we can start walking out. So we had 2 social support workers walking out onto the streets, into the neighborhoods to meet people where they were. But exactly as Katie said, that message of staying home, it doesn't mean very much when you're sleeping outside. And so the thing that we lost at the beginning of the lockdown was a sense of community, that for people not being able to get off the street for an hour or a couple of hours a day, to find respite, to make connection with people. The camaraderie in the day programs is high. It's a safe space for people to go. We lost that. And exactly as Katie mentioned, people didn't have anywhere to do their laundry. You know, there were some things we could do outside the building. There are many things that we can't do outside the building, particularly the more soft stuff, but the sense of joy that people would actually get for half an hour where they're doing karaoke. It sounds, you know, flippant in a way, but bingo, something just normal in a safe space. We lost that. We're trying to reopen, or we have reopened as the lockdown's been lifted. But of course, there are still real constraints to the numbers of people that we can serve each day. So we're continuing to go out. We need more funds. We need more staff. Our food costs have skyrocketed because we have to give individual portions to people. So there's all sorts of additional costs around this. But, you know, something I learned was just how amazing the staff are and how committed and dedicated to the people that we serve, and how quickly they adapted and just upended the services. Collaboration with other agencies has been huge also.
So just on that note, there has been good collaboration. Katie, you are saying that this pandemic has brought our housing crisis into very sharp focus. Has it accelerated our response to the housing crisis in any meaningful way?
I think actually that it's injected a level of urgency that we have needed for some time and didn't have. And that's mostly around the political and public will that actually drives change, right? The sector has felt this is urgent for years. The opioid crisis on top of the housing crisis has just, you know, exhausted everyone. And the level of complexity and the level of trauma and pain that people have been dealing with has been there for a long time. But I think finally, we're starting to see a recognition at all levels of government. Housing is the cornerstone of recovery. Like, if we do not have safe and affordable housing, we don't get this virus under control. And I think one of the concerning things that we're looking at now, initially, there was a real recognition that we have to prevent homelessness. So we put an eviction moratorium in place. That has now been lifted. And in Ottawa alone, we are looking on the low end. This is conservative. 2.5% of renters have paid nothing in the last 6 months and are at risk of eviction. In hard numbers, it's 3,200 households. Those are families. Those are people who have been working. They have lost their income and they cannot pay their rent. So without actual government rental arrears support, they're not going to be able to get out of that hole. And without reinstating a moratorium, we're going to see numbers flood the shelters in a way that we absolutely cannot manage. We've seen the tragedy in long-term care. The same thing will happen in shelters if even a smidgen of that 3,200 hit the shelter. So if even 200 households do, our current shelter system holds 1,900 a night. I know it's a lot of numbers, but the amount of pressure that would put on our system would overwhelm our healthcare system.
So on the one hand, it's accelerated the crisis, even as it's accelerated something of a response to the crisis. Rachel, did you have any other perspective to add on that?
Just to echo what Katie's saying about the shelter system, there's many people that we serve each day for food who are scared about being in the shelters because of COVID, and they're sleeping outside because they don't want to sleep in the shelters. So we're also seeing increased numbers of people every day looking for food. So if people start being evicted, the day programs are going to be under immense pressure to provide basic needs for people, but also that sense of isolation that people are feeling, and people are desperate for social connection. They're lonely, and they need some connection with our workers each day. It's really important for them. They look forward to us being outside and doing that with.
Our collective health depends on our collective strength, and using our resources across all sectors, in every heart, in every place, to rally and accelerate our response to the housing crisis, let alone the implications that have been created as a result of the pandemic as well.
Mm-hmm.
Building a community of hope is a real thing.
Yeah,
for sure. We're coming close to the end of our time. Katie, is there anything else you want to add?
I want to just add maybe a sliver of hope, given that this is a community of hope event. Other communities are ending homelessness. This is not an impossible task. Homelessness is only 30 years old, and it literally aligns with when we stopped investing in affordable housing. So this is a solvable issue. There's many things that may be less solvable. This is solvable. And what it takes, yes, funding, but funding is ultimately about public and political will. And when we push that, we can actually see great things happen. We have the passion and the commitment in this community, but we need to drive forward on the public will to push our politicians to make this a priority, knowing that it matters to all of us and our neighbors and our collective health if we do not take that seriously.
So we will push together. We'll continue to push together. Thank you both very much for the work you're doing in the pushing and in driving this forward and in meeting the needs of those who are most precarious in our community. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This place is the well, la source, supporting women with basic needs, help with life choices, a community to be a part of.
This place has saved my life, literally has saved my life. I can't say more about the staff here. They're just phenomenal. They're my godsend, you know.
5 community ministries. For many people in Ottawa, places like this are about hope. Sometimes the last hope.
You know, homelessness or addiction or disability or poverty it's not a sin.
People who are living with issues around poverty, homelessness, precarious housing, addiction, trauma, mental illness are some of the great heroes in my life. And I really feel that their stories need to be told. We need to understand that living in poverty is exhausting, is full-time. And our failure to raise people up, to give them housing and support and wrapped around by a community of compassion and love is, for me, one of the great failures of our time.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for hosting this fundraiser and all the amazing work you do for our centers. St. Luke's, The Well, and Center 454 have doing their absolute best to work together to work through this pandemic of 2020. Initially, in the beginning, we were very concerned about food security for the communities we support and each individual. Slowly, it then transcended into us concerned about everyone's mental health, especially due to social isolation. Our centers have become a social hub for many individuals, for many purposes. I want to share with you a story. At St. Luke's table, we had a volunteer who came in daily to help with tasks. His main goal was to make us laugh, smile, and provide a purpose for himself. During the time of the pandemic of 2020, we noticed that this individual was really struggling with their social isolation. We started to give meals out at McNabb and encouraged this individual to come by and give us a short stand-up comedy session to brighten our day and his. He followed through, and it turned into a great experience with a ton of laughs and a ton of positive outcomes. But this individual is not alone. Most of our community is concerned about their social isolation and the tools that they need to gain a sense of normalcy back in their lives. I want to thank each and every one of you for supporting the day programs, and we know that we will get through this together. Stay safe, be well, and keep encouraging, keep supporting, and keep shining those bright lights.
Welcome back to the Great Hall of Christ Church Cathedral, where I'm joined on the silver screen by Sharon York, who's the Executive Director of the Ottawa Pastoral Counseling Centre, Martine Dorr, who is with Cornerstone Housing for Women, and Kim Van Herk, who's an advanced practice psychiatric nurse at Ottawa Inner City Health. Welcome to you all. Thanks for being part of building a community of hope today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
COVID-19 is unambiguously in our midst, very much so now in Ottawa. And it's making us learn things, and it's making us see things. It affects everyone, as you well know. I'm wondering, from your perspective, how is the pandemic affecting mental health among the people that you are serving and your staff, for that matter? Kim.
So, yeah, the pandemic has definitely been difficult on the mental health of our clients. So Ottawa Inner City Health provides healthcare to the homeless, and we have medical units in several of the shelters, and then also have supportive housing units, one of our partners being Cornerstone. And so we've seen definitely our clients' mental health deteriorate during COVID. First of all, I think the isolation has been difficult for everybody. We are human beings are social creatures. We are not meant to live in isolation. And I think when I think about the homeless and how the homeless survive, it's very much based on each other. They have their own community in a lot of ways, and so that idea of trying to keep people apart doesn't really make a lot of sense for people from a survival perspective. And so what we see, what that means is, for people who often or usually have already underlying mental health concerns, it means their mental health gets worse. So things like more psychosis, more behavioral concerns, more substance use. For us during the pandemic, we've kind of had two pandemics, because we've had both COVID and we've had the opiate crisis. And the opiate crisis has hit us very hard during COVID. We've lost several clients to overdoses during this pandemic. So yeah, it's definitely been a stressful time for our, and I think for staff's mental health. I mean, as you know, in the early days, it was difficult worrying about what this was going to mean for us, because as providers for the homeless, we were very scared of losing a lot of our clients. And I think that fear is always there for us right now. And that's a heavy load to kind of carry. Right. So, yeah.
Martine, what are you seeing in Cornerstone?
Well, I think what we know is that none of us do well with uncertainty, and that applies for both staff and residents. So we have definitely seen a decline in the mental health of our residents. For many of our women, it is just one more thing in a life that is already filled with trauma and challenges. And of course, as Kim mentioned, isolation doesn't work for anybody. So we've had to work really hard to find ways to combat that isolation. Many of the strategies of COVID are the antithesis of what we try and do at Cornerstone, which is building community. So sometimes it's little things that we can do to help bridge that, finding new ways to connect, finding little strategies, like we were at one of our locations, we're running a tuck shop, and it decreases the amount of time women need to leave and expose themselves in the community, but it also creates another little way for them to connect with staff every day, to come in and purchase that. We do find our staff are also suffering. We did a staff survey and discovered that about 30% of our staff were already stressed with managing COVID in their own personal lives. And then when we layered work on top of that, it really exacerbates the stress. So we have a stressed staff and a stressed residents. So really it's the approach of we're all in this together that's been helpful, of being patient and kind with people as we have all struggled through the uncertainty and the ever-changing information. Finding ways to show our appreciation to both our residents and our staff team. So bringing in Tim Hortons coffee for the residents, bringing in treats for the staff, being really flexible with both residents and staff in terms of changing. You know, we've learned we need to be creative, and so things are going to look a little bit different, and that's okay, and that's really great. And I think that having lots of resources and incredible partners like Ottawa Inner City Health being one of them, partnership has really been important to us in dealing with the extra burden of mental health on both residents and staff during this time.
Thank you. Sharon, we spoke in the summer about how quickly the Ottawa Pastoral Counseling Centre pivoted. What have you been seeing in your practice in terms of mental health in the community and so on?
So I would just add to what Martina and Kim have already said. We have seen a steady increase in people contacting the OPC looking for counseling support. When I look back on the stats from last year to this year, we have doubled certain amounts every month for people who are phoning in asking for immediate crisis intervention appointments. So we've had to pivot. We've had to pivot to be able to respond quickly to people's needs. So instead of saying you're going to wait for 2 weeks because that's the next available appointment, we are saying we can give you a crisis intervention appointment now. Then we'll start working on creating a support network for you, because it may be a week or 2 or 3 before you actually get in for regular everyday counseling support. So we've had to pivot to offer more services quicker. We've had to work harder to help people connect with other networks of support, recognizing that all those outside networks of support are also struggling, trying to connect with people. So we are seeing a significant increase, not just in people coming, but the severity of issues that they're coming with. So prior to the pandemic, people were asking for support for anxiety, depression, addiction, family crisis. Now we've got a layer and layer of other issues on top of it. They're alone. They're not leaving their house, or they don't have a secure place to live. They don't have food. We're looking at, food security. We're looking at housing with people that maybe half a year ago had a nice little apartment or had a house, but they no longer have a job. They no longer have that income coming in to support them. And they are feeling the stress of what will happen and how long this will take.
Sharon, you have been able to deliver a lot of your work online now as well. Has that helped meet the increased demand?
Absolutely, absolutely. At first, we were uncertain about what was going to happen when we moved from face-to-face to voice or video conferencing, but it's allowed us to see more people. It's allowed us to do more compact, but really compassionate interactions with people, where maybe I'm giving someone a 15-minute call back that wasn't expecting a call this week, but that 15-minute call back, connecting them even to other resources, really makes a difference for them. So yeah, actually online counseling, it has worked,
okay.
To my
Kim,
surprise.
Sure. Kim, in your practice, how has engagement happened with your clients?
So we are, we've had the whole interesting perspective, thing of having to collect the PPE, all the protective equipment. So we are still in the shelters doing our work. As nurses, and client care workers, we're still, needing to give medication so it's been an adjustment having to wear masks and shields and protective equipment. We're used to usually wearing street clothes and being not a very clear distinction between who's a client and who's a staff. And having kind of specific reasons for that helps us engage with our clients. And so it has been an adjustment. But I think everybody has adjusted really well, and we're now really we've also been working on getting our clients engaged in wearing masks. So it's become more normal over time.
Yeah, who would ever have thought we would describe the conditions of a pandemic as normal? But I know that each of you in your own areas have done significant adjustments and pivoting the word of 2020. And I'm so grateful to you and to your staff for being such a critical part of the community of hope that we're all trying to build together here in our city and in our communities across the valley and across the country, and one hopes across the world as well. So I'm very, very grateful to you. Thank you so much, and strength to you as you continue in your work. And please give our very best wishes to your staff as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Be
Thank
safe.
you.
Thank you.
Now.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Hello, bonjour, Kwe. Thank you very much for the invitation to speak at the Building Community of Hope event. I am sorry that I can't attend in person, but we all know we're adapting to our pandemic environment. The pandemic has reminded us how important community supports are. We need each other, we need social support. And myself, like other members in the community of Ottawa, remain eternally grateful for the strong community ministries that do support the residents of Ottawa. As a public health unit, we rely on you to help us understand where there are gaps and needs, where people need specific types of help. And we look to you also to share public health messages to support your broad networks and keep this community safer together. Thank you to the community ministries of Ottawa, Centre 454, the Cornerstone Housing for Women, Ottawa Pastoral Counseling Centre, St. Luke's Table, and The Well. At Ottawa Public Health, we're proud to call you partners, and oftentimes we rely on the important services provided by you. Community ministries are an essential partner for public health, as you know how to build community, you know how to reach people, engage with residents. Feeling a sense of community and connectedness is a key determinant of health. Furthermore, the work of public health is informed by your engagement with clients, your knowledge of the barriers, and this helps us ensure that we work with others and use our resources to best address community needs. So during this pandemic response, Ottawa Public Health has been working with the City of Ottawa's Human Needs Task Force and many local agencies to really ensure that people who are facing the most disadvantage are supported. Most recently, we facilitated a webinar in collaboration with the Ottawa Food Bank to support community food security agencies and meals programs to adapt and offer indoor programs and services. And Ottawa Public Health will continue to adapt our information and our resources about health and safety and wellness to support you to continue your work as much as possible. During the emergency response, we've also engaged consistently with places of worship, such as the Anglican Diocese, to share COVID-19 messaging, including mental health resources, and to seek feedback on recommendations for the public health measures that relate to places of worship. We got information about attendance logs and other pieces of feedback that really helped shape the guidelines. So you're very important partners. Most importantly, you've kept people safe, clean, fed. You've provided counseling and helped some of the city's most disadvantaged access much needed healthcare services. So Ottawa Public Health can't meet the mandate to support the health of all Ottawans and decrease barriers to health for populations without your involvement, your knowledge, and your networks. 2020 has been a difficult year for so many, and we know the winter months are going to bring new challenges. So I really want to thank everyone now and into the fall for what you've done and what you will do. Please remember, although these are challenging times, we can get through this together. We are getting through this together, and we can come out stronger. Of course, I do want to remind people to be COVID-wise at every opportunity, wearing a mask for the W.
The work of our community ministries is so essential, especially at this time as we continue to be in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic and moving into the colder months when people are more vulnerable and at risk. I am personally so very grateful to the many supporters of our community ministries. I see firsthand each day the difference that your contributions make. As we look to the COVID winter, which will descend upon us very soon, your contribution, your generosity is as important now as it ever has been. This is why your donation really makes a difference today for tomorrow. To help us meet the matching gift challenge that Bruce has set before us today, please give online by visiting our website at www.todayfortomorrow.ca or call our telephone line, which will be open until 2 p.m. this afternoon. Together, we can reach our goal of raising $50,000 today for the community ministries of the Anglican Diocese of Ottawa. Our silent auction will be open for bidding until October 23rd, and it is online at www.32auctions.com/T4T 2020. It includes something for everyone, so please check it out. Thank you so very much for being with us today, as together we are building a community of hope. Thank you for your interest in the community ministries of the Anglican Diocese of Ottawa. Thank you for your continued support and generosity. It really does make a difference. God bless. Be well. Stay safe. Keep hope alive. Thank you.
I had $3,000 in the bank at the time, and I drank my $3,000 down to $5. And then when I had $5 left, I said, well, I got nothing else to lose. I went and bought a plastic gun, and I went and robbed the bank. And that's what changed my life. That one I can't blame. I don't blame it on just the way I reacted. I didn't know how to deal with it. Can't talk to my friends about that. What are they gonna say? Oh, get over it, Mike. They would have told me like, oh, how many abortions their girlfriends had or something like that. Well, no, that wasn't the case for me. That was probably the first time it ever happened to me, and that was enough. So that gave me my first 4-year sentence. Any way to escape the reality, man, I'm gonna take it. You know. And at the time, we're thinking anything that burnt had alcohol in it. And if you're in prison, if you get a hold of anything that's like alcohol, then you're gonna try anything, because it's a pretty desperate situation, you know. I drank windshield wiper fluid in prison, and that's how I lost my good eye. Now I'm just limited to shadows within about a foot. No colors, no nothing, just either light or dark shadows.
My mother was an accountant, and I followed along in her footsteps, basically, and I became a corporate tax auditor. I had an illness called vertigo. It sincerely pulled the rug out from under my income, my apartment where I was living. In an instant, I was homeless. It seemed that fast.
The people that I work with are what makes the work worthwhile. They're faced with all kinds of problems, and they're always working hard to solve them, and they're just like me, and I feel with them and for them, and I admire them.
These people, they don't do it for the money. They don't do this for the money. They really, really care about us, and it shows, you know. This is not an easy job. They got to deal with some pretty special characters. Everyone's got their own, you know, vices or whatever, problems. And they are really professionals. They deal with everyone so coolly, and they have a lot of respect from everyone around here. And this is probably one of the best places I've ever been at.
I don't feel comfortable at any other drop-in. No. I really don't. I mean, here's the only one where
you don't see the drugs.
Yeah, it's not right in your face. It's not, the women are a little more respectful than a lot of the other places you go to. Here I find it's more like a home, a family or whatever. And if this place wasn't here, I'd probably stay home. I don't know where else we'd go to talk.
No.
For any reason, if Cornerstone had to close their doors, it would mean the end of my career as I know it. I would be back on the street looking for a place to sleep. Our community would be at a great, great loss.
Sometimes we forget working here that every other place isn't exactly the same. And we get used to the awareness of our clients as spiritual beings, as beings who, whatever their overt faith or lack of faith, are meaning-making creatures. And there's lots of good stuff that happens elsewhere. But what I feel we carry uniquely is that the ground of our work is this understanding of the human being as more than someone who's adapting to his situation or her situation, more than somebody who's trying to fit into society, but as someone who has built into their being a need for meaning, a need for significance, a need to be recognized as greater than just a human animal. And I feel that this place holds that awareness.